I think so, definitely. Well, it's great to see everyone today. We hope y'all had a super weekend. For those of you that were involved in Merge, maybe it was a restful weekend and kind of a rejuvenation. I'm sure Jason ran a gazillion miles over the weekend while we were all sitting on our couches. Um, Jason, how many miles did you run this weekend?
It was 31.
Okay.
That's all.
Just 31. No
31.
big deal.
I didn't drive that far this weekend.
Brad, I don't know that you have driven much this summer. Every time we get on, you always say, I don't think I've driven that much in a week. So
No, I really don't.
that's
I'm a
great.
homebody.
Yeah. Well, you're that daddy daycare, which I applaud. And I think it's wonderful of you to spend time with your boys during the summer. So that's fantastic. So, but we'll go ahead and get started today. Yeah, absolutely, Ashley. The miles were transferable. That would be nice. So we are going to start off today just kind of thinking about what you've learned from the book. I know we haven't quite finished it all, but we have gotten through a lot of it. So thinking about what you've learned, thinking also about what you read in that chapter about the breakup. We would like to have you think about how would you categorize and characterize your teaching and your students' learning in the past. What does it look like? In the present, what has it looked like maybe in the last year? And then using the information from the book, what are you hoping that it will look like, or what do you think it should, or know that it should look like in the future? And so Ashley, just because I'm lagging on my end, I'm going to ask Ashley if she can to share a whiteboard within our Meet, and it is just going to open up to a Jamboard. And thank you, Ashley, for doing that. So it'll be in your chat, and there'll be a link, and you can just open that up. And this is created in our Meet together. And we'll just go ahead and let's just do the first page and just drop sticky notes with words or pictures, however you want to characterize. We'll make that first one the past. And then the second page, we'll go ahead and make that the present. And then the third page, we'll make that the future. And so just kind of reflect and think, what does teaching and learning in the past look like in your classroom? What has it looked like maybe here in the present, the last year-ish? And then in the future, what would you like for it to look like, or what do you know that it needs to look like? Okay, and if everyone can kind of contribute to all three pages on that Jamboard, that would be great.
Hey guys, if you opened it, if you'll just refresh the Jamboard, it was set by default to make you a viewer only. I've changed those settings, so if you'll just refresh that Jamboard, if you already have it open. Sorry about that. Of course.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, I think everyone's probably finished adding to our document. So thank you, Ashley, for popping that up there. So let's just have conversation. I know we have it all up here and we can go back and read and look at them all, but we'd love to just open it up for some conversation, some discussion about what did the past, whether it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's all in the past at this point. So what were some of those characteristics that we saw in our classroom and in others' classrooms in the past? And if you want to share an anecdotal point to it as well, feel free to.
I can start us. So my first year teaching was, straight lecture. And then I think we did one little project in world history. But my desks were straight in rows. I had my PowerPoint or Prezi going, and they did notes. And I don't even think I gave guided notes. I think it was just like copying almost word for word from the Prezi or the PowerPoint. So it was really boring. No collaboration. I don't even think I did a think, pair, share. That's how bad it was. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Absolutely. We probably all on here say that at some point we had a classroom that was in rows where we were delivering all the instruction and kids were writing stuff down, whether we taught in elementary school or all the way up to high school. It probably happened to all of us.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think I probably talked from the time the bell rang until maybe 2 minutes before it rang. Like it was just me. I don't even think when I did a bell work, because we had to, I don't even think I really allowed them to share what they wrote. I think I just read what they wrote and then read what they wrote to the class. It was not a fun classroom. It was very teacher centered.
And you see it now and you realize it now, and that's where we are. Like, how are we going to change that? And we've already begun to change it, obviously.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think it's because I really was mimicking my high school classroom. I did what my teachers did at the beginning. So, and that's just what I did. And then even in college, my professors, that's what they did. So it was just all about lecture. Even though when in school, when working through, like, that's what they said not to do. But when I got in, I started mid-year and I was just very overwhelmed. And direct instruction is just so easy to do because there's not a lot of prep work for it. It's just easy to fall. I think it was easy to fall into that habit of, and this was before Teachers Pay Teachers, but I had the book issued PowerPoints. Like it was bad, y'all. And it was just easy to do that. I didn't have to do a whole lot of prep work. So, it's not like planning a station rotation where it takes an hour or two to kind of figure all that out. But hey, everyone learns, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think back to when I've heard people say anyone can teach school. And I'm like, yeah, anyone can walk in and do what you just said, like give a directed instruction lesson taught from bell to bell. Sure, anyone can do that. But you think about the good teachers, the ones that are wanting to make a difference and that are growing and trying new things and all of everything that we're learning, like no one can just do that. That takes work. And sometimes, like you said, it's just easier to do that direct instruction, or it was in the past, easier to do that direct instruction because it wasn't a whole lot of work on you didn't, but now we're realizing and seeing we've got to put the work in to become better teachers, see growth in our student learning, have them to have those engaging and interactive activities that lead to them becoming better students and growing in their achievement and being able to interact with the 4 C's. So, yeah, thanks for sharing, Rachel. Anyone else want to talk about the past? Thank goodness it's in the past. I like to think about that.
For me, I think because I started in SPED, teaching special education.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a resource teacher, but then I was in the classrooms. Like my mama thought I was going to get fired because I went in the classroom and the teacher would say, oh, you take your kids and sit over there. But that wasn't what I was taught. And I was like, no, we're supposed to work together and no one's supposed to know. So my mom thought I was going to get fired my first year teaching. And so even in my resource room, I always did small groups, but I was the one leading everything. And so even when I transitioned to computers and math, I always had the small groups, but I was still directing everything that they did. It was just, they were just doing it in groups. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think about when I think about my past. I had the small groups, but they were just in groups doing what I told them to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's how we were kind of taught or told, or it was suggested, is that it was a teacher-led, like you're deciding, these are the kids you're pulling back and you're deciding what you're doing with them and you should be delivering the instruction. So even to Rachel's point, she was doing it whole group. We still, while we thought we were doing the right thing by pulling small groups, to your point, Rhonda, you doing everything and doing all the talking still was just like Rachel's whole group classroom. Yeah.
I said I snuck in the good stuff. I think in the past I've always been the crazy person next door. So I think I just closed my door. I can't tell you how many times I've said, "Oh, just close your door and do your thing," and that's not the best way to be a collaborative teacher either. So I think in the past, especially when I started teaching, it was you close your classroom door and nobody shares what they're doing, and we were a lot of little islands around the school building. So learning how to share ideas and the good thing about the protocols is you've got similar protocols and you can use them in different ways. So once the kids become familiar with them, even though that's the same, there's so many different ways to integrate them. So anyway, so I feel like in the past it was you had to sneak around, you had to isolate and be an island, and so hopefully that's changing for most of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a lot of sharing. I can remember when I first started teaching years and years ago, to that point, being an island because everyone was against everyone. You were trying to outdo the other teacher next door to you when you should have been collaborating with them. So you did close your door. So they didn't know what you were doing and you didn't know what they were doing. That was the mentality. I'm not saying it was right by any means, but I think that's kind of where we were. It wasn't about the collaboration. It was all about one man for himself and how can I make my classroom the best classroom and me the best teacher, as opposed to we're in this for everyone in the building and the whole grade level kind of, or the whole department or whatever it is.
And Jeff, I kind of took your comment, snuck in the good stuff, as kind of like, there was a time where we thought when we do this big project, well, we don't have time to do that all the time and the kids aren't going to get as much out of that. So let's just do that once in a blue moon. And so what we've learned through years and research and just all of that is that really is when kids are learning the most, is when they're the creators of what they've learned. They've taken it and created something. So I kind of took your comment as like, we only did the good stuff that we know now is really, really good sometimes,
Yeah.
So
there was actually, I remember the days when we actually had the reading program called Script, like that was the name of the reading program. So I don't think that was how it was necessarily meant, but that it was taken as the gospel truth. So the fact that it's called Script is these kind of scary now.
right.
Jason's sharing over here and Rachel's having a conversation over in the chat, but I just want to point out one part to it all. Y'all can go read it, but Jason said the whole "we should be on page 147 today" deal is very unfair to the kids and their learning. And you're right, in the past we're all on this page. This is what we're doing today. Everyone does it. No differentiation, no veering off from the script or the plan. It was, okay, we've got to get these pages today and this is what we're doing and we're all doing it together. So, all right, how about the present? What has it looked like kind of here recently? Anyone want to speak to that for us? I like the picture.
Okay, I did the funny. I was gonna say I'm glad I did the picture, and I'm glad y'all took that in the spirit that it was meant to. It was supposed to be funny because of the last, especially 2021, and I'm really hopeful that kind of is moving in the past, and that we're moving past that, and the new upcoming school year is not going to look like what the past, I guess, 2.5 years have looked like. So I'm hopefully that's going to kind of move over in that past part of life, and we're going to move on from that. But that's kind of where that kind of came from. And I'm glad y'all took it in the spirit of humor that I meant it to.
Absolutely. Well, Leanne, it has driven what our teaching and student learning has looked like. And so while we probably wish our present classroom looked a little different in the pre-COVID world, it may. But due to that picture right there and what we've gone through, some of our classrooms may not be right here in the present where we wish they had been, or where we know they should have been or should be. So it's definitely
absolutely
impacted all of us.
Oh, absolutely. And I know it impacted the, high school and middle school, but at the elementary, I mean, as far as the littles not being able to use math manipulatives, even to the point where they couldn't share crayons and couldn't share scissors. To me, it just, which I understand for safety reasons, but I feel like it was just taken a little bit to the extreme, which I'm all about student safety and would have never sacrificed student safety. But I don't know. Looking back, it was just, I don't know. I guess it was just a scary time for everybody.
Absolutely.
But Leanne, I'm going to piggyback off of that, trying to like add in the positivity of that too. Like I think about all that our kids were exposed to because we were kind of forced into what we were. And so I think there's a positive with like the digital side. I think our kids got exposed to so much that's going to be foundational if we use it in the right way to go forward, And so although I try to see the green grass and all that, because it was a daunting time trying to teach from home, trying to have kids join in virtually when you're trying to teach a class live, at the school. And but I'm thankful for what it did give our students, so going forward, if we could take that, and push forward, I think we'll see it even be more of a positive.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. And I kind of spoke to that in my future, and I'm sticking that on the future slide. So yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I see a sticky note on here, greater interaction, greater use of technology. And I think we definitely would all agree, forced into it or not forced into it, we are definitely seeing more use of technology. And the green one too, right there in the middle, seeing more collaborative groups, but not much structure to groups. And that's a big thing. Like we think, oh, our kids are working in groups, but what is it that they're really doing in those groups? And so while we are saying, yeah, we're collaborative, our kids are working together, is it really working? And what are they really doing? So anyone else want to speak to the present? It's where we are, so we kind of all know where we are right now. So let's think about the future and what do we want that to look like? What do we know that should look like? I think all of us in here feel like the EduProtocols is a great way to push us and things to use to get us to where we want our classroom to be in the future, which is so encouraging and exciting. But anyone want to just kind of share out about what they said about the future?
I would recommend anyone that has a chance going back when the merge videos are posted and listening to Matt's presentation on self-paced learning. Because I had a conversation with Sherry Spears afterwards, like how we could incorporate that, at the middle school level, even if it's just for like a unit this year, but like really trying to, okay, everyone has the Chromebook, everyone has the technology now. So like, what could we do where kids know these are the things you have to cover, these are the things that you could work on after that, and then here's the highest level of learning, here's what you should aspire to learn from this standard. So like trying to break activities into what do I absolutely have to get out of kids, and then what could they actually work to do above that, and making that very clear to them. Again, kind of going back to what Tracy said a minute ago, like sometimes we say we're doing these things, but like, we don't have, it's not clearly communicated to the kids and we don't have a clear picture of it. And so, yeah, we could say we're doing collaborative learning, but like, it may just kind of be in name. So like, again, trying to actually clearly communicate to the kids, this is the highest form of understanding main idea or conflict, or this, this tech, and giving them the option to pursue those challenges. And again, having kids that are working at their own pace. I feel like elementary does that so well, and high school, has clung to that direct instruction model for so long. And I think that high school and middle school has a lot to learn from elementary in terms of, I think we could get more out of our kids. And I think sometimes our kids are so passive, they just go in there, they sit in and slump over, or they do the bare minimum on that Chromebook. And so like how we could get them to aspire to better, and how we could actually get them excited and motivated for that, I think is a wonderful challenge that we have.
It's so funny to hear you say, because like my thinking has been the same. I did a AMSI training on proficiency scales, and it talks about those level 1, level 2 skills for each standard as the prerequisite to get them to the grade level, and then taking them above. And so just different things that I've been reading this summer, I was thinking since merge and some of the different things about how I can incorporate that. And so one of the things I was thinking about was having like a ketchup be my prerequisite skills, because they had like different images you could use, and one of them was like ketchup, mustard, and mayo. And so like your ketchup is those prerequisite skills or activities, or a playlist type of the prerequisite skills. Again, letting them decide, okay, I need help with this, or this skill I can't do, by looking at the learning targets and seeing what it is they feel they need. And then the mustard are the things that they have to do. And then those may are those enrichment activities. But, you know, I've been thinking about how I can incorporate that in with letting them identify their targets and see where they are, and knowing what they need. What you say? Mayo sense the learning strategy. You're so crazy. But then I saw another one with cupcakes too, because part of the proficiency skills is helping the kids understand what you mean by proficiency and what that is. And so they did one example in our training about how we could do it, but I'm still playing with it. But that's the guideline, is, you know, letting them identify what their skills are and giving them the tools that they need to help their learning, while I just kind of guided along the way and help them, and have those assessments in there where we can check and make sure they're ready to move on, you know, guiding it, but giving them more choice in deciding which things they use. So I'm still playing with that, see what it's going to look like. But mayo is going to have to be in there. So we're just going to have to get the big thighs.
Yeah, that, and the empowering the learner, you know, is huge. So love what you both shared. Thank you. Content creators, I'm just kind of calling out some things on here. Definitely content creators, not just consuming, greater collaboration and true collaboration. Meaningful tech integration, that's important, not just tech for tech's sake because, hey, we've got Chromebooks, let's use them, but what are we really having our students do with them?
I think the yellow one right in the middle, ending as strong as we started, is really important too. Because I mean, you know, like you think about some of the units that are taught, some of those units can drag out really, really long, and students can get you know, bogged down in the weeds with it. They lose interest. So designing it so that students are carrying their own interests, so they're curious and they're engaged with it, giving them the opportunity to lead their own learning. I think that statement right there says a lot. Ending as strong as we started.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Anyone else on the future?
So I'll chime in a little bit, and then this may be kind of a cover all three, past, present, and future. If you think back prior to the COVID years, where, you know, if you think about merge, for those that were there 2019, a lot of what we did was STEM related. It was hands-on related. Yes, there were some Chromebook related or, you know, computer related stuff, but how the shift went from the next 2 years, I should say, where we were virtual and we were learning new technology tools that, you know, that to use on the Chromebooks, and we were gaining Chromebooks. We were getting closer and closer to one-to-one for a lot of schools, and now we are at Columbiana too. And I think the past couple of years we've spent a lot of time on learning new tools, and we have all of these tools in our bag now that we can use. And I think now moving forward, it's okay, we've got the tools, now we know how to use them, and now it's just kind of organizing them in a way that we can almost use them without having to learn how to use them as we're trying to present it to our students, and letting our kids be the one that use the tools as opposed to us being the ones that use them.
Yeah, good point. You're right. We were doing all the creating and now shifting that focus and letting the students do the creating and the using of the tools. Good. Thanks, Brad. All right, well, we just wanted to start today off just more reflective and just kind of thinking about the past, the present, and the future, and knowing that our EduProtocols is something that can push us into the future and get us to where we know our teaching and our student learning needs to be. So thanks for participating. Matt's going to take it from here.
So kind of in thinking to round all of this out, this kind of stem from the breakup chapter, thinking about the past, present, and future. So in thinking about all three of these sections, what are some of the things that you were considering breaking up with as we kind of progress and shift our way towards the future?
You may relate to any of the protocols we read about?
Just in general, some from your teaching practices from the past and even in the present. What would you want to break up with in order to move forward? Yeah.
I think keeping all students, I guess it speaks to what Jason was saying, but keeping all students on the exact same pace almost is, I think so much in the past you've said, I have to teach this standard this day and I have to finish it by this day so I can start the next thing the next day. And I can remember the old math calendars where we literally had to, you only had so much time to teach a specific skill. And I think I still, when I'm planning, I'm a weird person because I also like to plan ahead. So I'm trying to say, oh, let's go ahead and plan out this first 9 weeks. When in reality, like, I don't even know what my students already know or don't know yet or any of those types of things. So and that applies to every subject, not just math. So I think breaking up with this whole mindset that everybody learns at the same pace and that we have to be the deliverer of all of this, in a certain way on a certain day and all at the same time, and everybody has to get it or else we're a failure. And so I'm gonna break up with that.
And that all goes back to, the whole idea of teacher-centeredness, teachers being in control, relinquishing that control. It's a challenge, to let students move at their own pace or to accept that students are not going to be all in the same place at one time, to let go of that and to be flexible and dynamic with it. It's hard.
It's hard for kids too, because like my board, everybody has a separate agenda for the day, and they panic if they see third period doing something from fifth period. And I was like, it's okay. And they were like, why are they doing this? It's fine. Like, even kids have that mindset, like everybody should be doing the same thing. And when they would see that one class period was doing something different on another level, that it was like a panic for them. And I was like, no, go back to the doctor. We all learn differently. Your prescription is different from their prescription. It's fine. It's okay. But like that's hard. I think what I'm going to break up with is like my beginning of class, like everybody does the exact, like even if they're doing, let's say they're doing IXL, even though they may be doing different things in IXL, everybody has to do IXL. So I think now I'm going to try to think about how I give them the skills that they need to work on, that I determine are some of their weak areas, because that's how I determined their bell rings was based on their, but I was like, so y'all need to work on this. Y'all have to work on this in IXL. You guys need to work on this. You guys have to work on this in IXL, but giving them the skills and giving them choices for where they can work on, what they can do to work on it, but letting them know what their deficits are. And here are the places that you can help grow in that area. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying everybody has to do the exact same when it comes as far as the program or piece of technology that they're using for that.
Yeah. That's great. What else? And that's okay if you're not if you're not totally comfortable sharing out. That's a question that, you know, asks you to be vulnerable and sharing. But if you are not there yet, that is quite all right. Just something to think about. And a charge to you to if you do have something in your mind, for those that have shared, to push forward with that, not just to say it, but to actually carry it out. All right. So now, you know, we've been talking about this book, you know, all these EDU protocols, and we have, you know, not gotten to them yet. We've looked at the smart starts, but, you know, we've this whole book about the protocols, and we haven't looked at a one yet. So now is where we finally get into the
Finally. It was good too.
All right. So Ashley's going to lead us on in the next section here. We've been having issues with meeting our mics. My mic was not working earlier in the first book study we had. She may have to leave and come back in.
Okay, here we are.
There we go.
Yeah, they keep going to weird default mics that we don't ever use. Anyway, but very good. Yes, and now that you have the foundation laid for what EduProtocols are, you understand the pedagogy behind it, there are 3 other books. And what's so great is we provided you with a resource that has the templates and information on all of the protocols you can find in the other 3 books along with this one. So now that you have all of the groundwork, you can use any of them because they're all built around that same mindset and pedagogy. So we thought about bringing in the Flippy random name wheel, the random name generator in a wheel to figure out which one we're going to talk about, because there are 16. So obviously with about 20 minutes left, we will not be able to touch on all of them, but hopefully you were able to identify 1, 2, or 3, or maybe more that you want to implement this upcoming school year. So let me share my tab. I used Flippity to put in all of our protocols. Again, there were 16 of them. Oh yes, Cindy says in all.
Yeah, they are.
Yay. All right, very good. So I just typed them in. It took me about 30 seconds to type these in, and here we have a wheel. So think back to the ones you picked for your group brainstorm, and here we go. Does anybody want to share about mini reports? Did anyone choose that learning frame and have a great way to implement it? Yeah, I see us all flipping. That's a good idea, because we definitely don't expect you to have everyone memorized, as we don't have every single one of them memorized. We have our favorites, that's for sure. Did anybody?
So I did. I actually looked at this one pretty in-depthly. And I really liked the idea of like modeling it together on the board. And that it's a quick write. It's not meant to be a perfect final draft of something. And so I really like that. It's a quick write. Where was it? I think it said somewhere in here, like, if you take this home to grade, you're doing it wrong. You know, I like that. I was like, okay, all right, that's like pretty straightforward there. But then like at the beginning of that chapter where it's like, you know, what it kind of looks like in each quarter. So like in each 9 weeks with like fact finding, better, you just dive. I like the scaffolding to it because I thought it could be really well implemented. You know, it's when we talk about ACAP writing, argument writing for sure, and even literary devices. Looking at, you know, how are literary devices used in a text. So I really thought that one was pretty neat.
Thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. And I honestly feel like at any age, even as adults, we have a hard time summarizing what it is that we've read or what our point that we're trying to get across. So I like that this has them pull out those important pieces. And so I think just back to like in the elementary world, how that's really such a hard skill for students to do. So I like this setup. Thank you so much for sharing. And that could be used across any content that you're working with, you know, a nonfiction type piece of writing. So, all right, anybody else want to share about mini reports?
I thought this would be good for my fifth graders, research writing is one of our standards, and just a really non-intimidating way to start the research process, because that's so intimidating for a lot of our fifth graders because they've never really done a lot of true research writing. So I thought that would be a really good, like I said, non-intimidating way, and just a really quick way to get them started on research writing.
Yes, it can be very intimidating, especially with all the information out there, information overload. So thank you for sharing, guys. I'm going to go ahead and spin the wheel again so we can get to as many of these learning frames before our time is up for today. All right, math reps. Any math folks in the house that wanted to speak to this?
I made a lot of notes on this one. I like the work mat, that style that I could use to help spiral skills. And like one of the things I know is that with my curriculum, fractions, I don't teach fractions, but they use it all the time. Solving equations and solving word problems. So I thought about how I could do a work mat and do a new work mat twice a 9 weeks to spiral my skills with fractions and incorporate their work mat into our math talks, and having them discuss how they would be, comparing the fractions or determining the order of them, all the different things that give them trouble all throughout the year, keeping it using my math reps to do that. And like I looked at some of the sample work mats that they had on the website that they sent you to for just different templates and stuff. And so I was thinking about how I could use that and just get them thinking in the beginning using the math rep, and then incorporate that, like even putting some different number strings on the work mat for them to go through, and then have them talk about it in our math talk. But they would have a tool to use like a little crutch, especially as we start out using them more than I did last year with the math talks.
Very good. Yes. And I love this. What I love so much about this one is this could be happening like all the time in the background. This is a learning frame that's in place all year. And we add other learning frames into our individualized lessons. But yes, I love that this one can be incorporated. And I feel like there are so many versions of math reps out there. So many people are probably already doing this. I know for sure in the elementary world, this is a big thing, but they probably didn't realize that it was a learning frame from the EduProtocol book. So that's kind of the nice thing. You probably read some of these learning frames and thought, well, I already do that in my room. It's just an abbreviated version, or it's adapted in a different way. But that's still great. You can just start calling it this learning frame.
Yeah.
All right. Any other math folks want to share, or anybody else that thought to use the math reps in a different way? Maybe not with math, but the same idea with a different content. All righty. We'll spin the wheel.
I had the idea of using the math reps with the unit conversion. It's not necessarily part of my standards, but I still kind of have to do it. Otherwise, they're completely confused when it comes time to talking about unit conversion. And just basically using it maybe as like a warm-up activity, where I give them a number with a unit, and there's multiple places where they have to take that one number and unit and convert it to multiple different ones, as opposed to just taking 10 meters to centimeters, converting it one time, giving them a chance to kind of see how that one number is equivalent to all of these other different numbers with different units.
Great idea, Brad. Thank you for sharing.
So just to kind of piggyback off of the math reps one, because the math reps was adapted from the 8 parts one, and honestly, I thought 8 parts was awesome because I get so frustrated at the beginning of every year because I'm like, why do these kids not know their 8 parts of speech? Just drives me nuts. But the way the 8 parts of speech was presented and starting out the year like that, I was like, this is great. Like, I don't feel like I have to do worksheets about the 8 parts of speech that we never finish or they still don't get. So, just to kind of piggyback off the math reps to change into the 8 parts, I thought 8 parts was, just really great, and a great way just to keep reinforcing how they can use the 8 parts of speech and how they probably already know the 8 parts of speech. They just don't realize they know it.
Yes, Jeff. I was a Shirley Method kid, and yeah, I'm not dissing the Shirley Method. I mean, I learned some things, and I still know some of those songs, but I mean, it was the same thing all the time. And yes,
Yeah.
so this is, yeah. Anybody else there with the Shirley Method? But yes, I love how, I mean, it is important, and learning those 8 parts of speech or knowing those helps their comprehension. It helps with so many things, so it's important. But this gives it a fun twist. So.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I think it was much more engaging than typical.
Yes. All right. Great discussion. Anybody else want to talk about? Jason says, I'm there with you on Shirley. We have a All right. Sounds good, Jason. All right. Here we go. We're going to spin this colorful wheel again, see what we land on. All right. Primary source. Anybody want to share about primary source? Sorry, we're having a little Shirley Method sidebar conversation in the chat. If you're like me, you're flipping through like, wait, what page was that on?
Yeah. What did I write on that? That's what I'm thinking. What did I write on that? I don't think I wrote too much.
Well, you know what? I'm going to spin this wheel again because I want to be able to talk about the things that you guys put, because I know in the group brainstorm we had a wide variety. All right. Anyone picked learning in the round?
That one was so much like the other book I'm reading about, Making Thinking Visible. I mean, that's what we do. When I it talked about, like, I call them my thinking boards, but it talked about the kids being up and going and the teacher staying in the middle and having it. So it's pretty much a summary of what I do as far as like having the kids do the gallery walks and share their learning from the other boards. Like I do like the fact about the different songs that it mentioned. Because I just always, I mean, when they come in, I have music playing in the background. That's the only music I play. But they had like the different songs for when you walk around and different songs when they know it's time to get up. So I thought about using those. But it says that it talks like the benefits of I'm still flipping to the page, but the benefits that it talks about of doing the learning in the round is the exact same benefits that it talk about in the other book I'm reading about making the thinking visible for the students. Thank you, Ashley.
No problem. We're all on the same struggle bus trying to figure out what page.
And I have so many pages folded down that it's not flipping easily. But how it talks about kids really getting to share their thinking during this process.
And they have distinct roles, and that's what I love too, is so often kids need that structure to be able to effectively collaborate. And so I love how that's a major part of a lot of the learning frames is kids have their role.
Yeah, and this one also talked about changing the groups, like changing their groups every day of who they worked with. So all of that is was mentioned in here. And so I like this one. I got a couple more ideas of how I can use my thinking boards in my room with this one. And I like learning in the round. They're around, and then I could be in the middle and they could come to me. Because I know now I walk around, and then whenever they can do their gallery walk, I go back out of the way. But I can make my spot be a central spot in the room.
And Jeff says the book Rhonda is referring to or referencing is called Building Thinking Classrooms. He has a whole chapter dedicated to this protocol. Super cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Jeff. That means it must be really powerful. If you have it cross-referenced in another book, I love when that happens. So Cindy says this book is such a great resource. Jason says, I love the idea of using whiteboards. Any proper working environment should have a board with ideas and work, and having the capability to have students to get up and move and work that mimics so well what engineers do to solve problems. Absolutely. Love it. Such great discussion. Thank you, guys. All right, we'll spin this wheel again. I know some of you are like, oh, I hope it lands on blank. The Great American Race. Anybody want to share their ideas on this? This is a great one. Page 123. I know if you came to Tracy or I's session during Merge, we talked a little bit about the Great American Race. And I love, love, love how this one really does have that student expectation of individual students have to do work and then they get together on teams. And so basically, does anybody want to share how they might use this one? Well, I'll continue. So they get on team. So basically, whatever content, we used the United States. You could do presidents. I mean, it could literally be anything you're working on across any content. And you give the students a topic that they're assigned to. And each of them are then assigned to create a Google slide. It doesn't have to be a slide. That's just what is used in this example is in a slide. And they have to add in facts. They have to add in they add in one picture, but it can't be whatever word it was. So if Alabama was my state, I can't put a picture of the state of Alabama, but I give clues to that state. Then it's race time. So every kid works individually on their state. Then it's race time. We put them on teams and they have to race to see how many of the slides they can guess the correct name for. So it turns the learning into a game. I mean, this one, is a whole lot of fun. So again, that bringing that individual student expectation and that collaboration in a gamified way. So
I made like a little quick brainstorm of different ways I could do this. And I put that I could do that with vocabulary either before we did the unit, the different vocabulary words that we'll be doing, or even as a review afterwards, or different concepts. And I put like different things that have different like attributes of quadrilaterals or different polygons and have them. I thought it might be good in ways to do that, either front loading or reviewing. I thought about how I could use that either way to help them.
Brad says, I was thinking of using the Great American Race in some fashion with regard to the periodic table of elements. That's awesome. Yes. Great idea. And now that my brain's going, I'm even thinking of like, how can we meet up some or, fancy up some homework? I mean, I know there's a certain amount of homework that's necessary. And so could we take a learning frame and use it as a way, to give the students something a little bit more exciting as homework once they know how the learning frame works. And then they do their share component in class. So just these thoughts that are going through my mind. Elizabeth says vocabulary is a great way to use this. Absolutely. And that goes across any content. Leanne says so many ways to use this for 5th grade social studies. Absolutely. Very good. All right. Anybody else want to share? All right. I think we'll spin the wheel again. What do you say? All right. Oh. And Elizabeth spoke to the 8 parts earlier. So if you're okay, I'm going to go ahead and spin again unless somebody else wants to chime in. All right. Ooh, Book of Kucha. Does anybody want to share their ideas for this one?
I really thought this was really cool because it was 4 slides, so I like that. It was short, sweet, and simple, and then it focuses on those different aspects. I thought it would be great for independent reading, and also to in some way keep them accountable, because it was, hey, it doesn't matter if you've read 50 pages, 75 pages, or 20 pages of your book. Everybody can stop and do this and find these elements in there of how focused it was. And even like, hey, do we need to go back and go over what internal and external conflict is? So I really enjoyed this one. And I looked up how to say it though, because I didn't want to like start saying it in class and be like, wait a minute, what? So I looked up how to say it, and I found a YouTube video that like went over it. So anyway, I thought this was just a really cool way to like hold students accountable with independent reading.
Absolutely. And we had some chat over here. Leanne says, love this as well. Great way to engage all learners. Absolutely, because they can create on their level with whatever they're reading. Jeff says, great for book clubs too. Absolutely. You could even think about using this in like your whole group setting. Maybe you're reading your novel study together, or in the elementary world, a novel study or a picture book. And then maybe the book of Kucha is done in collaborative groups. And so I know it doesn't necessarily present itself that way, but remember, any of these learning frames can be adapted in different ways. And so all of these were awesome ideas. Cindy says this was another favorite of hers. Cindy has a lot of favorites. So do we, yes. Jason, I'm graciously bowing out here. Oh, okay. Bye, Jason. All right, here we go. Any other ideas for Book of Kucha, or can we spend, it's about 11:30. Maybe we should wrap it up.
I just like the quick paced nature of Book of Kucha, because it's so short, like you were saying, Elizabeth. And when students present, they only have 20 seconds per slide to present. And beyond that, time's up, we got to move on. So being able to have students focus in on the most important content that's on that slide and have them present on it it's one of my faves too.
I was just going to throw in, I used this one for a culture building activity, not even related to content, but we used it at the beginning of a cohort that I was a part of as a way for people to share a little bit more about themselves, but not go on and on and on and on and on. So they each made their own slide about themselves, got with a partner that then shared, and then we rolled through it all together. So that was just kind of a fun way to do it as well.
Love that too, turning it into a smart start.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up this session. What a great time it's been. Thank you all so much for your contributions and just everything that you've done to make this so awesome. So if you'll be sure to update your digital notebook, that's the first thing, because we have dropped some incredible resources in there for you. And your assignment, this is next Tuesday, August the 2nd. It's next week is our last time together. So this was our last real big session, and we're just wrapping up the book for next session. So we ask that you read chapter 33, which is to the afterwards. So chapter 33 and to the end. And if you'll go back to your group brainstorm and finish column 4, that should be your last column that is not completed, and you are going to think about a particular protocol that you could implement as an assessment. Now, we know there's lots of common assessments, and so we're thinking of a way maybe you could formatively assess students or provide another summative assessment using a learning frame. So that is what we'll have you do for next time. So really, outside of the reading, you're just completing column 4 of the brainstorm. So we will see you guys next Tuesday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all. Take care.
Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much for I ended up getting a little late for my the health screen took a little longer, so I ran up here to the secondary coach's office. So yeah, it worked out great. So thank you.
I was wondering because I was trying to figure out how you got in your classroom. I was going to be